Have you ever heard the saying that funerals are for the living? Obviously, the funeral is literally for the person who's died, but their main purpose is to allow the people left behind to share their pain with others. Grief is a horrible pain, no matter what way you look at it, but knowing that you are not the only person going through it reminds you that you are not alone. However, there's another kind of grief that's a lot less common, but no less devastating. There's no real person or thing that you're upset over losing. Instead, your pain is entirely derived from losing something that you never even had. In short, grief over something that doesn't exist. Just a heads up, not only will this video be extremely depressing and cover distressing topics like loss and grief, it'll also have a few spoilers in it too. I'll be talking about Close to the Distance, Life is Strange, and Signalis, and I'll put some individual warnings on screen once I get to them. I highly recommend all of these games if you've never played them, so feel free to come back to this one later once you've played them yourself. Otherwise, let's go to where all grief starts, the end.
The town resounds, the ocean just glistens, everything grinds, nothing ever listens. The tide never minds, the dawn never wanders, for the closer the distance it.
A lot of media make out loss and grief to be this explosive event. A character dies, people who care about that character scream to the heavens asking why, before swiftly moving on with the plot. Close to the Distance does not take that approach. Upon starting a new game, Angie has already died, and you instead have to watch as each of her family members learn and begin to process this news. There's no grand reveal, nobody dropping to their knees and wailing in grief. There's just a knock at the door, and police lights outside the window. Moments before this happens, the family were discussing where Angie could be. Her mother even scolds her for staying out too late and making them delay having dinner for so long. When the police arrive, it never even crosses their mind that she's dead. They just assume she's got into some kind of trouble. When the mother returns from speaking to the police, she orders Connie, Angie's sister, to go wait upstairs. Her irritation is replaced by a commanding coldness that parents reserve for the most serious of situations. It's a tone of voice that says something has happened that will change your life forever. I'm just not ready to tell you yet. Upstairs, Connie enters Angie's room to search for her. She calls out to her sister, and even though the room is empty, she hears her respond. Despite the bizarre situation, the two go back and forth trying to work out where she went. She left in a bad mood, took her camera, and left an unfinished poem on her laptop. All signs point to her going out to clear her head with every intention of coming back. There's nothing special about today outside of the fact that she still hasn't come home. Eventually, Connie's dad comes upstairs, takes a moment to gather himself, and knocks on her bedroom door. When Connie emerges from Angie's room, he instinctively calls her the wrong name, only to break down in tears once he realizes his mistake. He can't even hold himself together long enough to tell Connie what the police said, when they're interrupted by Connie's mother, shouting at the police to leave.
Get out of my house!
Wait here.
Should we follow him?
Pia? What are you doing?
I'm making dinner.
Where are the police?
I asked them to leave. My angel would never take her bike down the coast at this hour. Would you mind getting me some fresh potatoes from the pantry?
The first time I saw my parents cry was one of the first times I really felt both my own and their mortality. All through childhood, they seemed relatively all-knowing and unbreakable. Sure, maybe sometimes they couldn't help me with homework they didn't understand or lost their temper when we argued, but for the most part, I never thought about them feeling pain to that degree. When you were young and you cry, you go to your parents for comfort. But when they start to cry, you have no idea how to help them. For them to be brought to tears means that something is really very wrong. And for Connie, she's quickly starting to realize what that is. In the kitchen, her mother is making dinner like nothing is happening, in complete denial of what she's been told and what's becoming painfully obvious to Connie. After repeatedly trying to get her parents to talk to her, they finally agree to go talk in the living room, and the realization hits Connie before she even has a chance to leave the kitchen.
Please, talk to me.
Let's go to the living room and sit down.
Don't go. I can't be alone. I'll come with you.
Honey,
I'm dead, aren't I?
She knew this, likely from the first moments of seeing the police lights. As much as she didn't want to believe it, she knew they weren't just here because Angie was in some kind of trouble. The searching for her in her room, hearing her voice, and theorizing about where she is were all in denial of a simple truth. We never get to see what her parents say to her because it doesn't matter. Angie is dead. All they can do now is try and find some way to carry on. I've taken so much time to talk about this introduction to illustrate just how well the game portrays receiving news like this. Already, you see 3 different people learn the news and react in 3 drastically different ways. Nobody is processing this event in a particularly healthy way, and despite what the game and Connie would have you believe, she is perhaps coping the worst. In the days following, the game expertly portrays how paralyzing an event like this can be. How can you just go back to work or school like nothing's happened? How can you eat or sleep? It doesn't even make sense for the sun to rise and set, and yet it does. Allowing things to go back to normal means distancing yourself from what you've lost. And for Angie's family, along with the other residents of Yesterby, that is something they cannot allow themselves to do. After the first night, the game revolves around Connie and the voice of Angie trying to help others in town deal with this loss. Only a handful of people live in Yesterby, so this death is like losing a family member for all of them, and everyone reacts differently. Angie's boyfriend, Zek, initially denies it and lashes out at the others. Gayla, the local doctor, blames herself as the two argued before she died, and so tries to help the family as much as she can to make up for it. This results in the player performing a kind of emotional archaeology. We've never met Angie, so all we know about her comes from how other people remember her, and of course, her voice. You as the player start to build up your own fantasy of what Angie was like and how she thinks, and you are not the only one. As Connie speaks to some of the residents of Yesterby, she tells them to try speaking to Angie just like she does. This causes those residents to hear her talk back and allows you to influence their choices based on what they think Angie would like them to do. The thing about the voice that is so fascinating is that it never leads the conversation. Almost all of the time, someone speaks to it first, and it simply responds. It never tells the other person something they don't already know or says anything with a degree of certainty. It's more like a conversation you'd have in your own head to try and figure out a problem. You present an idea and bounce it around until you are happy with the answer. These residents are coming to the voice with their own ideas of what it's going to say or advise them to do. All it does is follow their lead. Initially, this seems to help, but as the days turn to weeks, the pain doesn't get any better, and this insistence on doing what Angie would have wanted starts to cause them more harm than good. Zek decides he wants to leave town and make a life himself in a nearby city. When looking for jobs, he finds an opening for an ambulance driver that he feels Angie would want him to pursue. However, to do this, he needs to take lengthy classes with Gayla, causing both to fall behind on everything else they have to do. During my playthrough, I kept worrying that I was playing the game wrong or badly. I failed to complete many of the objectives in time and caused members of the town I could control to miss opportunities that would likely be good for them. Initially, I thought I was just bad at time management. Whilst that may be true, I also began to think about it in a different way. Maybe the pursuit of doing what Angie would have wanted is supposed to cause them all to stall their lives instead of truly living. Maybe, rather than playing the game badly, I was instead falling into that same trap by trying to do right by Angie. I became just like them, living for a person that's no longer here and that I've never met. The pursuit of appeasing the voice of Angie causes these people to neglect other parts of their lives, as all they can focus on is her. One by one, they realize that to get over this pain and move on with their lives, they actually need to move on. One by one, they say their goodbyes and decide they need to start learning to live without her. Eventually, you are back to just Connie, and despite the obvious toll this is taking on her, she can't bring herself to let go. Since the start of the game, she's been speaking to Angie and recalling memories of their time together. She took it upon herself to try and help everyone else process their grief, but in doing so neglected her own pain and acceptance. By talking to the voice and doing what it asked, she was able to keep some parts of Angie alive, and now the idea of losing that is just as unbearable. During their final conversation, where she continually fights back and refuses to let go, she questions if any of this was real in the first place.
You're still gone. And without you, it's just me. Because you're not really here. I'm just imagining you. Because I can't let you go.
Whether you think it's real or not doesn't really matter. It was real to Connie, and letting go of this voice means her last shred of Angie is gone, and her sister is confined to memories. I think most of us, at one point or another, have thought about what another person would do if they were in our situation, what our friends or parents or grandparents would say if we went to them for advice. For a time, you can hear their voice and imagine what they would say, but once they're gone and you stop hearing them speak and seeing how they think, your ability to recreate them fades. The ghost of them you keep alive in your head loses its shape. You don't forget them, instead, your idea of who they are slowly becomes less detailed. Angie may have already died, but this second death is a lot more definitive. It means actually starting to move on and learning to live without her. It means allowing her to become a memory fading with each passing day. If you really want to be on the nose about it, it means furthering the distance between them. Not to try and forget her, but to start learning to live without her. Just because it's the right thing to do, it doesn't make it any easier. Connie has already mourned the death of her sister, but now she has to get started on the process of mourning the memory of her. We all mourn memories in some way. Thinking back to a time and a place and slowly the details become fuzzy, it's a bittersweet truth that the more details you forget about a person or a thing, the easier it gets to live without them. No matter how much you try and fight back against it, the memories fade and with them the pain. But at the very least, at the end of the day, you can think back to the good times, and even if they aren't as detailed as they once were, you can remember the reasons why the loss came with so much hurt. But what if you couldn't share these memories with anyone? If you instead had to bear the weight of loss all by yourself? The First Life is Strange is one of the most subversive things I have ever played. On the surface, it seems like a coming-of-age time travel mystery. Two childhood best friends reunite to fight crime with some newly discovered time travel powers. However, if you are paying attention, it's sowing the seeds of grief from the very first moments. When Max first discovers her powers, it's to save a girl who she watches die. She doesn't even do it intentionally, she just sees something horrible happen and practically wills her powers into existence to stop it. That girl, it would turn out, is Chloe, that childhood best friend I mentioned earlier. Saving her means the two get to reunite and get into all kinds of trouble as they try and figure out what exactly is going on in Arcadia Bay. The writing and performance here are about as accurate as I've ever seen when writing young people. The dialogue is the right amount of dated and cringy, but the two act exactly like estranged best friends. They can easily slip back into old habits and talk to each other with no filter, only to occasionally realize that they still have some work to do to fix the relationship.
Looking sick, Max? A couple tats, some piercings, and we'll make a thrasher out of you yet.
Ready for the mosh pit, Shaka Bra.
Maybe not.
I couldn't really help but root for them, and every choice I made was in the interest of bringing the pair closer together. Also, the word hella has invaded my vocabulary, and I fear for the day I accidentally let it slip in public.
So, how was it? Was everything to your liking? Oh, thank you, it was all great. It was hella tasty. Okay, well, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna get your bill. Okay, thank you so much. Fuck!
However, that shooting at the beginning is not the only event that threatens to keep the two apart. Over the course of the game, Max witnesses Chloe die or nearly die over and over again, each time intervening to save her, whether through time travel or more traditional means. It gives you this feeling of invincibility, like as long as Max has her powers, there's nothing that can stop the pair from coming out on top. But, at the same time, it gives the game this lingering dread that weaves itself into the hairs on the back of your neck. Why does Chloe continue to die? Sure, she's reckless, but over the course of a few days, she has more close scrapes than most people have in a lifetime. It doesn't make sense unless there is something else putting her in harm's way. Something trying to correct what Max has changed. This sense of unease is accentuated by the increasingly bizarre effects on the environment. First, it's just early snow, but then animals drop dead in the area. Birds fall out of the sky and whales beach themselves, as if the death looming over Chloe is spreading to anything it can. This all comes to a head at the game's final choice. The first thing Max and the player see in-game is the vision of a storm. It's so large that it's guaranteed to wipe Arcadia Bay off the map and take countless lives in the process. No matter what you do, this storm is coming, and in a moment of desperation, Chloe gives Max an impossible request. She can either let the storm destroy Arcadia Bay, killing almost everyone else you've met, or she can go back to the first time she meddled with time and saved Chloe, and undo it, in the hopes it sets things back to normal. The morality of this decision aside, for time-travelling Max, this is an unbearable choice. If she chooses to sacrifice the town, they will both have to live with the fact that hundreds of people died so that Chloe may live. They will carry that guilt for the rest of their lives, but at least they'll carry it together. However, if Max chooses to sacrifice Chloe, whilst the total number of deaths on her conscience may be lower, the pain will arguably be far greater. Chloe may want to sacrifice herself and be ready to say goodbye to Max, but the Chloe that dies isn't the one standing on the cliff. It's the Chloe that hasn't spoken to Max in 5 years and is miserable with life. It's the Chloe who lost her only friend, is constantly arguing with her stepdad, and is pretty much at rock bottom. She will die before she can ever reunite with Max, before they ever go on time-traveling investigations, sneak into the pool in the middle of the night, or realize how they really feel about each other. When someone dies at a young age of unnatural causes, you can't help wondering, what if? What if Chloe hadn't gone to school that day? What if she was in a better place so could tell her parents she was in trouble? What if she'd lived? Angie's family are plagued by these thoughts, but Max has something worse. She doesn't have to wonder what if because she's already lived it. She knows that if Chloe lives, they get to reunite and uncover why people keep going missing in Arcadia Bay and become closer than they ever thought possible. She has seen what happens if she lives and will mourn the loss of that for just as long as she would the town. But when mourning Chloe, she has no choice but to do it alone. Connie could talk to others in yesterday about Angie and reminisce on their memories of her. Even when she lets the voice go, she will still have the ability to keep Angie alive through the stories people have about her. Max must instead bottle up everything she's experienced for the entire game and keep it to herself. It's one thing to sacrifice the one you love to save countless others. It's another to erase the times you had together from their memory and condemn them to death at their lowest point. Chloe will die, thinking she has no one left in the world, and Max will be the only one to know any differently. When I played it this year, I wasn't going in blind. I'd watched someone play it when the game came out nearly a decade ago. Oh dear God. I knew where the game was going, and I had a thought in the back of my mind that the ending having the option to reset everything was a little bit cheap. Undoing everything you did over the 10 or so hours you've been playing, it seemed like a cop-out way to wrap up the story. But playing it myself, I saw that the reset of events wasn't the point. Sure, if you zoom out, it may technically fix almost everything, but for Max, and me for that matter, it's beyond devastating. Max's ability to time travel means she alone has the power to decide the fate of Chloe and Arcadia Bay, but it also means that she must bear the guilt of loss no matter what. To call the choice unfair doesn't do it justice. That's excellent writing that means you can't help but root for the pair comes back to bite you as you are faced with the very forces of time and nature trying to keep them apart. They are beyond star-crossed and yet cannot help but reach out and try to make it work anyway. If Max chooses to sacrifice Chloe, she alone will remember their time together and will mourn that for far longer than she will her actual death. The Chloe who dies and whose funeral she will attend isn't the same Chloe she knew. Max alone will mourn for her Chloe, who, to everyone else, never even existed. The memories may be real to her, but the events of them will never have happened. She will mourn the loss of their past, present, and future together, and that is more than any one person should ever have to bear. She alone can make the choice and decide which to save. It may be an impossible choice, but at least she'll only have to make it once. At least she isn't trapped in an endless cycle of being faced with the same heartbreaking decision over and over again. Wouldn't that be terrible? From the opening moments of Signalis, you have one singular focus which carries you for the rest of the game. You wake up on a ship, and the one lead you have to work out what is going on is a picture of a woman. If you can find her, then everything will be alright. Why the woman is your sole focus isn't immediately revealed to the player, but the deeper you travel into this world, the clearer the final picture becomes. The only other thing you learn on the ship is that you're an Elster replica unit. Replicas are essentially androids built for a specific task. Each kind is based on the neural pattern of a Gestalt or human. However, all memories are stripped out, leaving just a specific skill set. This makes them a near-perfect workforce. You see, the only thing holding them back from being actually perfect is the fact that even though their memories have been removed, the ghosts of their memories remain. Have you ever smelled something and unlocked a memory you didn't think you'd had? The obvious example is the food critic from Ratatouille, but for a more personal example, for me, it was laundry detergent. We were on holiday in Spain and my mum bought whatever was the cheapest laundry detergent she could to do the laundry whilst we were there. When she opened it and caught a whiff, she almost burst into tears. When I smelled it, I could see my great-grandma, who at that point had been dead for nearly a decade. I don't even know what the smell was, but I know that it reminded me of her, and it was hard not to get emotional from just the scent. Even though we may not have had a specific memory of her doing laundry, the ghost of that smell was enough to bring her right back. The memories may have been removed from these replicas, but they can easily be triggered into remembering and becoming unstable. An android knowing it's an android based on a human is one thing. That same android unearthing memories from a life they've never lived is another thing entirely. So, chasing a ghost, you set off in search of the woman. Upon exiting the ship, you are met with a frozen expanse and an archway in the distance. There, you descend a spiral staircase and crawl through a hole into the Sierpinski outpost to continue the search. The facility is decrepit, like it hasn't seen proper maintenance in decades. Around every corner, there lurks corrupted replicas, both deformed and deranged, and hellbent on attacking anything that gets close. With no other options, you must push through and travel deeper into the base and the mines below it. At the bottom of this base you find the mines, and beyond that you fall further still into what can only be described as a landscape of flesh. Rust and rot permeate every surface. This isn't a pulsating mass of tissue. The fabric of reality is coming apart at the seams, and once you reach the heart, it is torn open entirely. Stepping through a final door, you find yourself at the bottom of a spiral staircase, a perfect, fleshy mirror of the one you descended after exiting the ship. Ascending the staircase, you come to that same archway, but rather than a frozen landscape, it's more hellish flesh covering every surface, with your ship waiting just where you left it. As Elster approaches the ship, she walks past countless other Elster units all collapsed, but clearly trying to reach it. The compulsion that fueled your Elster to enter this base and descend into hell in search of Aline is not unique. It is baked into their neural patterns so deeply that it is all they can focus on. Nothing else, not even staying alive, is as important as finding Aline, and, as you quickly find out, your Elster isn't immune to that compulsion. She approaches the ship and climbs up to open the hatch, but it doesn't budge. She continues pulling harder and harder until... Elster lie there dying from her injuries, and we watch as the light leaves her eyes and the credits roll. The last words before the end: wake up. She's back where she started, but something's different. The ship, for starters, is in space this time. Rather than a photo of Aline stuck to the docking computer, there's a diary written by someone called Ariane. She complains about running out of a specific kind of orange paint and how all she has to read are manuals. It's comfortingly dull after the abnormality of the game so far. Eventually, Elster track down Ariane, and the two have very clearly become more than just crewmates. Piecing together information from posters, diary entries, and documents, the pair are part of the Penrose program. This is a long-distance scouting mission where ships are sent into deep space in search of habitable worlds. It sounds fairly straightforward for a sci-fi mission objective, but reading the documentation more closely gives you this creeping feeling that the people sent on these missions are never meant to come back. One document details that you should avoid eating the flesh of your replica crewmate, no matter how desperate you may be. Another states that it may be preferable to use your limited resources to keep the replica working and have them end your life or put you in stasis, as they have a higher chance of successfully completing the mission. Even from this surface-level observation, you get the sense that these are suicide missions dressed up to be leading the search for a bold new frontier. There's another document that's equally concerning, but for entirely different reasons. Back in the Sierpinski, you found documents outlining each type of replica and what may trigger them to become unstable. Some require strict discipline and regular promotion, some need to live in groups and be given stuffed toys. However, you never find anything about stability in Elster units. All you know is they're survivalists and are based on a decommissioned unit from the Penrose program. On board the ship, you can find a document which outlines how to keep them stable, and it's more tragic than any of the other kinds can even come close to. They are most stable when isolated, so Gestalts are encouraged to interact with them as little as possible and refrain from forming bonds. They cannot listen to music or watch movies or think about war. They are to be left in silence to get on with their work, and nothing more. The unit on the Penrose that all other units were based on is basically speedrunning instability. Her relationship with Ariane, their dancing to music and watching of war movies have modified her neural pattern, and that has been copied onto every other Elster unit since. You might assume that instability means becoming just like all of those monsters you've been fighting, but there's no way to really know. The only mention of instability is a reduction in productivity, so is it beyond the realm of possibility that instability, at least in the case of Elster units, could simply be love? I find the idea of love fascinating. It's an irrational, overpowering and, dare I say it, unstable experience. Every logical ounce of your brain can be telling you that the likely outcome of falling in love is pain and heartbreak, and yet people will still do it every single day. To fall in love is to embrace that instability and to share that experience with someone special. No matter how long you experience love for, it leaves its mark on you. It can be years since you've even thought about that love, but someone can wear a perfume and it'll almost kill you and cause you to leave the room. Shout out Chapel Roan. In all seriousness, is it really a stretch to believe that a society that deems it okay to create android slaves would think allowing those slaves to fall in love might be called unstable software? The documentation says that Elster units work best when left to their own devices, but could it be that actually they are too prone to forming attachments that they may perceive to be more important than their work? Elster falling in love doesn't corrupt her software or cause her to become a monster. It simply gave her something that's more important than any mission. Someone who she would gladly sacrifice the success of the mission to save. A promise that would override any line of code, no matter how many times they tried to erase it. That is what every Elster unit is now chasing, the ghost of a love taken from them. The person they once were has been erased once already, and now this copy of a copy is holding on to the one thing they have left. They may not have experienced that love for themselves, but that doesn't make the yearning any less real. If anything, it's even more important, as if they let this go, they have nothing else left in what remains of the world. The song that plays as Elster makes her march toward the ship is called Die Toteneisel, Emptiness. Die Toteneisel is a painting of the Isle of the Dead that appears over and over again during the game, but emptiness has a lot more significance to this aspect of the story. It is emptiness that all Elster units are trying to escape. They continue to wake up and descend into hell in the hopes of one day making it back to their love and filling that emptiness inside of them. None of the countless Elster units that met their doom on the Red Expanse or at any point before ever interacted with the love they are chasing. All they have are ghosts of a life they feel they should have lived. the echoes of memories from countless years ago as real to this Elster as they were to this Elster. They may not belong to her, and by some definitions, may not be real. But the pain they create and the need they inspire is. There is far more at play in Signalis than the surface level romance I'm covering here, like how this archway relates to this archway and why the Elsters keep coming despite the rot of the rest of the world. But the thing that stuck with me the most was the love. Love that was shared between a woman and a copy. A copy of a human with all the humanity stripped out of them, and yet the ability to love crept its way back inside. Elster essentially built herself a soul from scratch, and it was all through realizing that she's allowed to be loved. I can't seem to escape grief. I've talked about it multiple times on this channel, and yet it continues to follow me. It seeps into everything I play, everything I write. I think this confused me for a long time, but now I realize that the grief I carry isn't for anything or anyone real, but more so for a life I never got to live. I grew up as a boy in Catholic school doing everything you'd expect from that description. I begrudgingly went to church, played rugby, and chased girls like my life depended on it. All throughout my teenage years, I struggled mentally, and I could never really explain why. I had good family, did okay in school, and I had and still have the best friends I could ask for. And yet I couldn't escape the feeling that something wasn't right. I lost whatever faith I had in the church the moment I learned how it treated gay people. Rugby was fun until it wasn't, and even relationships would be going well until that creeping feeling of wrongness wormed its way back into my life. But I pushed through, got a job that sucked, another one that ended when the world did, another one that was great until it wasn't, and then another that was actually alright before making videos on the internet just about became a full-time thing. I thought that building a career and a life around myself would fill that gaping hole I was still feeling every single day. That a house and a dog and the job that I've dreamed about doing since I was 10 years old would be enough, but I still felt just the same. Just now I had to pick up poops and pay a mortgage, and I'll let you guess which job is more shitty. I love my dog, I share a house and a life with someone I love, and yet I could still feel that hole, that terrible void that sucked away everything good and left me feeling like a living ghost. Like I could hear a voice no one could see, had lived a life that did not happen, or was grieving for something that wasn't real. About a year ago, I found a crack in that void. A single sliver of light in a vast expanse of total darkness. Through this crack, I could see a life for myself, free from the void. A life where I didn't feel like a ghost or a mindless robot. And still, the thought of leaping into this crack scared me more than almost anything. Would it fix anything? And if it did, would it come at the cost of everything else I'd spent so long building? However, the one thing that scared me more than leaping was what would happen if I didn't. On the 2nd of January of 2025, I told my two closest friends and my girlfriend that I am a trans woman. Since then, I've gotten on the NHS waiting list for a consultation about trans healthcare, and whilst I wait for my appointment in 6 years, 18 weeks, I talked to a company about getting a private prescription. In March, I started HRT, and I mean it when I say that I have literally never been so happy to be alive. The void has receded somewhat, but it's left behind an ache. As I said, I'm so much happy to be alive, but I also now mourn for the life that I never got to live. A life where I was this happy from the start instead of living in pain for so long. The childhood I never had as the person I was supposed to be. I can't tell you what this childhood would have looked like, but I still can't help but grieve it. How would my life have been different if I was born a woman, or even if I'd figured things out earlier? It's a grief that has no closure, or source, or peace. And so all I can do now is try and change my thought process. Hello. I may not have lived as I was meant to be from the start, but I am a result of every step my life has ever taken. If I wasn't a terminally online hermit all through school, chances are I wouldn't have bonded with my two best friends who I'd now consider family, who were just as terminally online and solitary. If I wasn't looking for a partner at that time as the person I was, then I may not have ever met one of the most special people in my life, and someone who I now share a house and a dog with. My life before may not have been easy, and it may be painful to let it and the person I was go, but I'm grateful for the time I had with both, as without them, I wouldn't really be me. So, to my past self and the one that could have been, I'm going to try to stop mourning you and start living for you. Hello everyone that made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. This is obviously a bit more of a personal video to make, so I figured I should probably wrap this one up with some kind of proper outro. I want to reassure you that my focus is on making videos about fiction that makes me feel things, and primarily that's going to be video games. If you want content on transition, then there are a bunch of great channels out there far more knowledgeable than me. I might make references to transition if it's relevant to a video, but otherwise expect the same sorts of videos that you've seen so far. You might have to deal with me being really terrible at style and makeup and all those other things, and the voice may change at some point in future, but I absolutely suck at that stuff, so I don't expect any miracles anytime soon. I hope you'll stick around and not give in to the hate that seems to be everywhere right now, and real quick, if you want to leave a hate comment, just leave, there's not really any point. I just want to live my life and be happy, and I want these videos to be a part of that. So, thank you one more time for watching, don't forget to love yourself no matter what, and I'll see you in the next one.